As we have finished up Unit 2, we've had a couple questions about MLA citation, and I wanted to take a second to answer the top 3 that we've seen. So we're going to be talking about how do you document an online source that doesn't have page numbers? Second one, what goes in the parentheses at the end of the quote? And third, how do I cite a TED Talk? So we're going to look at this example, which honestly I picked just because I find in hindsight the illustration hysterical, because if that guy knew what he was jumping into in 2020, he might be wearing a parachute or, I don't know, at least a helmet. So I found it kind of funny. This is an article from Forbes. It's called 10 Tips to Leap into 2020 with Success and Happiness. And like most online sources, there are no page numbers. So the first time I use the source in my essay, I need to integrate the quote into my sentence using a tag to give the author's full name and article title. Technically, I could do this just as I introduced the source in a previous sentence, but I wanted to show you what it would look like integrated. So in his article, 10 Tips to Leap into 2020 with Success and Happiness, Brian Robinson explains, scientists say we're hardwired with a negativity bias to keep us out of harm's way. Because negativity has a longer shelf life, you overestimate threats and underestimate your ability to overcome them. It takes 3 positive thoughts to offset 1 negative thought. And I've put a little box around here at the end. So in the past, you would have had to indicate that there was a missing page, like with an N period or an NPOG notation. So if you've studied MLA in the past, that might still be wandering around in your memory somewhere. But thankfully, that rule has changed in the current MLA formatting. So today, writers no longer need to indicate the lack of page numbers for online sources. It's just assumed. And if your reader sees this and says, hey, why is there no page number? They can go look it up in the works cited and see that it's an online source where the easiest way to find the information is going to be, Control F or some other quick way of finding the information. Page numbers just don't stick in the online environment unless it is material that's been copied from a print source into the online world. Another question we got was what's up with those parentheses at the end of the quotation? We haven't explained this rule, but some people are using it. Totally cool. I just wanted to explain how to do it correctly. So in the example from the previous slide, I introduced the quote as using the tag, right? The first time I used the source. So I used the author's full name and the article title. We have to have that information in MLA the first time we use a source in your essay. After your first time using the source, I can point my reader to the source information using parentheses at the end of my quote. So you can see here in my example, according to current research, then I have the quote, I finish the quote, and then I put Robinson in parentheses at the end. So a couple things to know about this rule. One is that if you use the parentheses with the source information at the end, you still need to integrate the quote into your sentence with your own words. That's part of MLA style, which I show here in the red underlined part. Also, at the end, in the parenthesis, you only put the first word of the works cited entry. You don't put the full name. You definitely in MLA do not put the title of the piece or the URL or any other source information. It's only the first word of the works cited entry, because that list is alphabetized. Your reader's going to be able to find it really quickly as they skim down the list of entries in the works cited. And the formatting goes as you see here. You're going to close the quote with your quotation marks. You'll have a space and then your source information in parentheses, then the period. So this is one time that the period doesn't go within the quotation marks because the quotation marks are not finishing your sentences. You want to avoid the common mistake of duplication. I see this a lot. And once people start using that source information in the parentheses at the end, it becomes a habit. And there's an actual rule in MLA that if you have the source information in the body of your sentence, like I have here in my example on the slide, it does not go in the parentheses at the end. It goes one place or the other, so you don't duplicate. Another question we got is, how do I cite a TED Talk? I totally get it. If you start looking around the full MLA guide on the OWL or in the book, you're going to see dozens of different documentation rules based on the format of a source, and it can be intense to try to sort through which one fits your source. And TED Talks seem to fall into a couple different categories, right? You might see lecture, but that's intended for an event that you attend in person, like a class lecture or a poetry reading, things for which there's no video recorded evidence. Entry for video fits pretty well, but it doesn't stress the importance of the speaker enough and is usually more interested in who produced the video or published it. So the easiest way to deal with a TED Talk is to treat it like a web page on the TED site, and you'll have all the information that the MLA is looking for if you follow this format, right? And that's, so it'd be author's last name, followed by the first name, the web page title in quotation marks, the website title in italics. You're going to have the date that it was posted to TED. Almost all of them have a date posted. You put the URL, and then you're going to put the date that you accessed it. So it follows, thankfully, it follows the same pattern that we've been using for online sources. Here's a pro tip for you. At the bottom of the screen, when you open up the TED video, the popular TED Talks have a transcript you can use for quoting the source. Um, and it, you know, if you're a fast reader, it's a much quicker way actually to get through the material is to read it. So check out the transcript. And if it doesn't have a transcript, I've seen this to be true on some of the smaller, less popular TED Talks. You can at least do the closed caption, but that means you're going to have to be, you know, stopping and copying it down all the time. Um, so take advantage of that transcript, and good luck. Keep the questions coming about documentation, and we will do our best to clarify things.